Welcome to another live edition of Saturday's Warrior. I'm your host, Trevor, and with me, as always, is Adam. And tonight we are talking the QB1 battle for BYU. It looks like it has finally come to an end. Some other training camp, or not training camp, fall camp takeaways, as well as looking at our rankings for the Big 12 football uniforms. And so we're going to debate that a little bit as we get going. But before we do, Adam, I have to ask you, has the epidemic of what is K-pop Demon Hunter hit your household?
So my family's been on vacation for a few weeks, and I had joined them. And week one of sitting there at my mom's house, I walked down to the basement, and sure enough, all my kids, my nieces and nephews, were gathered around K-pop Demon Hunter. And I can't lie, I was captivated. I tried to sing along for a bit. The magic of it sucked me in, and for all 6 minutes that I saw it, I was really impressed.
Only I'm impressed. You only got 6 minutes. I've seen the whole thing. I gave him. I said, hey, I'll give it to you once, and then I've seen parts of it so many other times. So
Wow.
I mean,
So you're all in.
well, I'm doing my best not to be, but
How can you resist?
the kids are learning the dance routine. It's crazy because my kids, nieces, nephews, their friends, boys and girls alike, like it is just everybody. And my wife has been infected, not to the same extent as the kids, but it is taking over, and I cannot avoid it. Except for when I'm in here with you, there's no K-pop Demon Hunter generally.
I'll give you a minute if you want to sing a couple songs. Come on.
We
It's
need to
your platform.
I wonder if Spencer Linton, he served Korean on his mission. Maybe he'd be able to translate a little or help us out there with the lyrics. But no, so this is a reprieve from that, and we are in a safe space where we can talk things that really matter, like college football. So, big news with the QB battle for BYU, as everyone's heard by now, that looks like it'll in all likelihood be Bear Bachmeier that comes out to take the first snap of the season for BYU. When this news first started coming out, I didn't see it from any news sources or credible accounts. This was just fans saying, "Oh, it felt like people were kind of taking and running with what ARod said." Yeah. Maybe a little too literally. And so I didn't pay much stock to it. And then it was more and more accounts talking about it. And I was like, okay, people are really getting excited by this. Does this have legs or not? And then you start seeing news sources saying, they were walking it back a little bit, saying it looks to be that way. We're not like he hasn't officially been named, but apparently that's what all the sources are saying. It is Bear Bachmeier. So having said that, in all likelihood, BYU has his man. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about it being Bear? And how do you feel like, at this point and what it says for the program and BYU's chances going in through the season?
Well, first, I think it still has to be taken with a grain of salt. ARod can be unpredictable with the quarterback. I would love to know what the sources are, because I hear everybody quoting sources, assuming they know people inside the program, and those are the sources. But I heard it first. I think Patrick Kinahan was one of the first ones to say, well, sources say it's Bear Bachmeier. I didn't really think it was serious until Jeremy Jordan here on the show last week really alluded to it, and essentially said, talking to people inside the program, it looks like he really is the guy. That's when I started to put a little bit more stock into it. I'd love to hear it from the program. I know ARod said that they don't want to keep it a secret this year. They're going to come out and say it. If they don't announce it by tomorrow, we won't know until Portland State. And because tomorrow's media observation, they're officially ending fall camp. They're transitioning into Portland State prep. That's when you announce it. So I'll be interested to see if they actually make an announcement. But I agree. All signs point to Bachmeier at this time. And I think we were talking about this at the beginning of fall camp. And I said the most unlikely scenario and the best scenario for the program is that Bear Bachmeier comes out as a clear-cut starter. And I still think that is the best scenario. is having him as the clear number one. Now that may speak poorly of Bourget and Hillstead, two players who we thought would have a real shot. And if you listen to the local Utah media, they're really high on Hillstead, and some of them don't love the fact that Bachmeier came in and won that job because they felt like Hillstead deserved a shot. They watched him play through high school. They watched him play Utah State. He's been involved in all the local camps and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know if this was really, Hillstead not showing out. I mean, he had the longest, well, not the longest time. Bourget had the longest time to show that he was the guy, but Hillstead had plenty of time and he didn't do it. So the advantage to Bachmeier is you got the youth. You got three years in the program. I think he said he wants to go pro after 3 years. That's a great timeline. For BYU, gives you 3 solid years of quarterback play if he turns out to be as good as advertised. The schedule lines up favorably for him to step in. So there are things I really like about it. I think it caps your ceiling a little bit just starting a true freshman quarterback. It's really hard to say with a true freshman quarterback you got a legitimate shot at a conference title. It's happened before. It'll happen again, but
So what do you
that's
think that ceiling is with Bachmeier?
I think you could go as high as 9 or 10 wins. I do. And I don't know that may get you in the title game or not. I think it's likely you're around 8 wins. I think you drop one out of the first 6 due to just a flat game or Bachmeier making a freshman mistake. And then you got those middle 4 games. That's really the gauntlet of Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU. You go, 1 and 3, 2 and 2 in there. And then you end up with a couple games at the end of the season. It kind of depends what's on the line. If you're out of title contention, maybe there's not as much motivation. I could see them going 9 and 3. If I put my blue goggles on, I could see them going 10 and 2. I mean, in theory you could, but with a true freshman quarterback or an injury to the quarterback position or an injury to the running back position, which is really thin at this point, I could see us at 7 and 5. And so I think the floor is a little bit lower, the ceiling's a little bit lower, but the future is so much brighter. If you can build enough around him this year and put together an 8, 9, 10 win season this year, my goodness, the sky's the limit. You're knocking on the door of the CFP the next couple of years. You got a great quarterback now. He's got experience. He knows what he's doing. So overall, I think it's the right decision for the program. If you look at the opposite, if Hillstead had started, Bachmeier's clearly got the highest ceiling. At some point, you're going to have to transition to Bachmeier in the next year or two, and that's odd. Hillstead's only a sophomore, and that's tough to do. So all in all, I think it's the right decision for the program. Do you give up a game because of it this year? Maybe. I don't know. We said before, I don't think Hillstead can stay healthy, and so just hand it over to Bachmeier, see how he goes, get him the experience.
Yeah, first you mentioned our conversation with Jerem last week. Actually, before I do that, you talked about our prediction for the season. We're going to get into that next week, and we're going to make our full predictions for the whole season, as well as final the standings and for the Big 12 and how we think our predictions for the season. But going back to last week, I had said to Jerem, because he was saying if it's close, you start the freshman, which is something that we had said early on in this whole quarterback saga. So that I think a lot of people feel that way because at that point you're investing in the future. And I just want to clarify because I said if it is Hillstead or if it is someone other than Bachmeier, you put him in, and I say 1 loss, you put Bachmeier in. I don't think that would happen, and I don't think that's not how ARod operates, and it looks like it's going to be Bear. At the time, we didn't know that. But my point being, at that point, if you're losing one of the first 6 games, then I would say you may as well start investing in Bear now and forget it. Like if you think Hillstead's going to get you through those first 6 games undefeated, and that gives you a better chance, then great, go with him. But if you're going to pick up at least a loss in there with Hillstead, you may as well go in there with Bachmeier, I guess is my point. Like there's really no advantage in my mind. And so I guess I'm agreeing with that sentiment that if they're even close, you go with Bachmeier because he is the future. It's just, and it is the situation that it is. Yes, it would be great to have Jake here because we think our ceiling is higher. And this feels like this was a year where you're bringing back a lot of last year's production from what was already a very special team, added some really key pieces to this team. The depth was there, experience was there. You felt like this team wants it. They know how to win. And so then to come, it feels like getting a freshman in there is a big step back. So in some ways, that's like a safety blanket with Hillstead. But I like that the coaching staff isn't being safe. In fact, that was something that ARod said in his criticisms, or not criticisms, but just in his remarks to the media about the different quarterbacks. When we talk about Hillstead, he said he was too careful and needed him to speed it up a little bit. And, you know, we had a solid quarterback play for the last season and had a really good we had a really good season upon solid quarterback play, not eye-popping stats, but somebody who was willing to take risks. And so, he coughed it up. He made some head-scratching moves. And guess what? A freshman's gonna do that too. But in my mind, maybe we've already shown that our defense and our special teams, our team as a whole, can overcome some of those mistakes. Because Jake, while he got better at moments, still had those kind of boneheaded turnovers. And so the kinds of things that you'd expect from a true freshman going in and starting games. Yeah. And so, as you already mentioned, he's going to be able to come in into what is presumably a relatively easy start to the season, to start getting warmed up, get acclimated, and get caught up to speed by the time we start hitting stiffer competition. And so I think you're right. This is the best case scenario. And if he really is 3 years, that timeline works out just about perfectly with Ryder Lyons, giving him, it would be basically, he would be coming back from his 1-year mission, sitting for a year behind Bear Bachmeier, and then coming in and presumably being the starting quarterback. And so that lines up really nicely. And so I like that the future's here. It seems like BYU fans are completely behind Bachmeier. Like, they've completely bought into this.
Well, they are now. They are now. Yeah. And right, 6'2", 225, and all we have is ARod's description, right? Which is good, right? He doesn't take sacks. He throws tons of completions. You get the highlight throw to Carson Ryan over the over the middle of the field, fits it in this tiny window. I mean, what we have is great, but we have 4% of his fall ball production, and no one knows what it's going to be like when you turn on the lights in front of 65,000 fans, against Portland State or against West Virginia, or at Colorado. Even those early games are really going to test him, and no one knows. He doesn't know how he's going to respond to that. That's the thing with a true freshman. They could come in and they could be Trevor Lawrence or Jake Fromm, and a true freshman could lead a team to the CFP championship. But no one knows how he responds in those big moments or when he has that bonehead play. I think it is important when you go back and look at the season, and again, in an 11-2 campaign, and you really want to back your quarterback. It's easy to overlook the fact that Jake was making some of those errors late in the season. He had some bonehead plays, Kansas and Arizona State, some crucial ones. And you hope that these freshman mistakes come towards the beginning of the season and you're seeing a progression, right, later on in the year, and he's a little bit more prepped. Bachmeier's a little more prepped for the back end of the season. Maybe that's where he differentiates himself from Retzlaff a little bit. But I do think someone with the talent of Bachmeier, with his potential, can replicate Jake's production and probably replicates some of his turnovers. And so I think everyone's saying, if we replicate Retzlaff's 24 production, how do we look in 25? That's tough to say. I don't know. I don't know if we win the middle of that schedule and we go 3-1 or 4-0 in the middle of that schedule with 2024 Jake Retzlaff at the helm. I don't know. That's tough to say, and we'll have to see how those teams turn out.
That's true, because even if he makes some boneheaded mistakes, as we've already said, that puts him on par with Retzlaff. Then if he has a little bit of a higher ceiling, and if he can start tapping into that this season, then maybe that gives you, maybe even better production. And if he is the one that's running the team, that's willing to take chances, that's willing to, push the team down the field, then I think, maybe he does. I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying there is that chance. Now, I wouldn't count on that. And as you said, maybe his turnovers get, he gets that under wraps by, later on in the season, except that's also when we get into the tougher part of the season. And so he's going to start seeing tougher defenses like Utah, like some of these other contenders for the Big 12. And so we might actually see statistically a step back, even though that's not necessarily a reflection on him. But I was gonna say, or gonna ask about how you feel that what does this mean about Hillstead? So do you think that it's just close enough that they're going with Bachmeier, that Bachmeier's just impressed and really come out really ahead? Or do you think it says that our other guys really aren't that good, and so they're just kind of saying, "Hey, may as well go with the freshman"? Like, which
I,
is it?
I think that's, man, that's the tough thing. You don't know as a fan, right? And that's the scary part. It could be that Bachmeier went in and beat out two experienced dudes. They've got D1 experience. They've been in the program a year and a half. They know the offense. That's the narrative that the media wants to spin, and that's what I want to believe as a BYU fan. Where I'm like, yeah, man, Bachmeier is a genius. He came in and he picked up on the offense right away. He's gonna start the Heisman hype now. On the other hand, you go in there and you say, well, Bourget completed like 34% of his real passes at Western Michigan, and Hillstead's undersized, and they both had only 3 or 4 games experience. These guys weren't great starting material anyway, and so it was all too easy for a freshman to come in and beat him out. So those are the two narratives that kind of come out of this, and the reality is you don't know which one it's going to be until they take the field. But I will say Bachmeier is a totally different type of recruit at BYU. I know we've got Ryder Lyons, we've had some of the big name recruits in the past, but how long has it been since we had a dude who had offers, not like interest, not contact with Alabama, Michigan, offers to come and play for them and said, "No, I'm a quarterback, I'm not going there, but I am going to end up at BYU." I don't remember the last time we got that guy and he started for us. And so I feel like for BYU, this is a different plane. This is a different echelon than we've seen before, and that's another reason to get excited as a BYU fan to say, look, clearly our recruiting class has made a statement. All those dudes had serious P4 offers, and in 2026, and so it feels like we're stepping into a new era with Bachmeier, in the same way that we're stepping into a new era with Devonta and Yegar Joman and all of that. And so it kind of follows the narrative we've had the past year and a half that we've enjoyed with the Big 12. And I think that's why, as a fan, you love to see Bachmeier in there. It's not just the potential; it's this sort of statement to say, yeah, that's the dude, the 6'2", 225 dude. That's our quarterback. Yeah, it's not. We're not starting the 5'9", 190 guys anymore. We've taken this to a new level, and we're quarterback U. We've had tons of good quarterbacks. So that's not throwing shade on guys who have started before, but it just feels a little different.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's what has Cougar fans so excited about this is the possibility. And, you know, I think I think you're right. I think realistically, our season is we're probably most likely not competing, or at least it's going to be very tough, a much tougher path to get to the conference championship with a freshman quarterback. But he could surprise us because his ceiling is that high, and we really could. And the Big 12 is the Big 12. And like you said, 10-2, you could be going to the conference championship game. You could be caught in a tiebreaker with 6 other teams and, get the raw end of that deal. So, but regardless, I think it's the right move, especially if the coaching staff thinks that he gives us the highest ceiling now while you can simultaneously build for the future. There's really no downside to that. Like it's a no-brainer. You have to do it.
Yeah,
So I'm really excited to see him. I'm glad we have kind of the start to the season we have. It gives him a little bit of time. And maybe now that bye week before ECU isn't such a bad thing.
agreed. I think the schedule lines up really favorably for the situation we're in, and so again, another reason to start him is the dominoes all kind of line up and say, all right, let's give this a go. It's exciting. It's exciting to think that's the quarterback you're watching. Um, at the VCU game. I think that it's just that's the excitement value as a fan where you're like, yeah, if I get the choice, I want to say not just a true freshman, but the true freshman that beat out the other guys and the coaching staff saying, yeah, he's that good. That's intriguing. I mean, Roderick has a high standard for quarterbacks. Not everybody's met it. But I think while he's been involved with the program, we've done pretty well on our quarterback play. Besides a glaring 1 year there where we couldn't get it done. So it'll be an exciting year.
Absolutely. All right. So let's see here. I wanted to pull this up because I wanted to acknowledge it because it's pretty blatant. But so I did not intentionally copy. My thumbnail for this video is essentially a ripoff of what Jake Hatch did with his thumbnail that's out there. Now, I listen to Jake Hatch, but it's usually on podcast, so I don't look at his thumbnails. I'd already created it, and it was a similar picture. Had the Y, a similar tagline, and everything. So I wanted to put that out there and acknowledge that I did rip him off, but not intentionally. So. But I want to get to this. Ben Criddle says, or he just posted from Jackson Payne, something that he had said. Jackson Payne, friend of the show, but says, this is the best situation a true freshman has ever had at BYU. He's got proven weapons, a strong offensive line once the rotations settle, and a defense that will take the pressure off him. The Big 12 schedule is manageable too. If ever there was a year to start a true freshman, this is it. So he's kind of taking the opposite mindset of what I have. Like, shoot, this is a year. You don't want to be starting a freshman QB going into this year when you have all this talent coming back. You'd like to bring in an experienced quarterback and really capitalize off all these guys, many of whom will be leaving after the season. But Jackson has a much more optimistic perspective on this, saying like, look, this guy has talent. This is a guy that has a really high ceiling, and he's got the talent around him to help him out and maximize that talent and help be able to mitigate maybe some of those mistakes he might make and take the pressure off him. And we saw that last year. In fact, we got a comment right here from Locker Cycling that says, we had some miracles last year, in my opinion. Defense and special teams won us games last year. I expect that to continue. And some of that was Jake Retzlaff. He really had kind of that clutch gene at moments. Sometimes he would make the boneheaded mistakes, but then other times he just had, really, really clutch plays. But time and again, we saw the defense and special teams put our offense in position to capitalize off it and make things easier on the offense. And so I think that same mentality that applies forward. If our defense, if you're imagining, hey, we've reloaded, even though we lost some guys, this is now another year with Jay Hill, with this defense building it up. If they can take another step forward, and then the special teams we should continue to see success there. That really, this should be that we shouldn't be looking at this. Yeah, he's a freshman, but we have talent. This should be like, this is the time to bring this freshman in. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, I think he is correct. This is the time to bring a true freshman in. I'll add the caveat that we are 2 to 3 injuries away from a catastrophic season. The advantage you have in a senior quarterback is if you have a thin running back room like we do now, and if you have injuries to Martin and Moa, who've had injuries in the past, Retzlaff has proven he can carry that load. He knows when to run. He can be dynamic with his legs. Now, Bachmeier should, in theory, even more so be that. But what you're putting on the freshman is the decision-making capacity, and that is what's tough to grow into. Whereas if you have a senior, they're making the decisions on the fly, and you can call 2 or 3 plays at one time. Quarterback gets up, audibles into the right play, and it's that capacity that you really need if you're lacking a run game, or you get key injuries on the offensive line and you have to compensate for that in your play calling and things like that. Those nuances, I think, is really where Bachmeier would be taxed. Now, if Martin stays healthy all year, oh my goodness, I like our chances of knocking on the door of a Big 12 championship game. I really do, because if he's healthy all year and the offensive line is healthy all year, look out. You're going to have a dynamic running game. Bachmeier is going to sit back in these play action passes with tons of time to throw the ball, wide open receivers. It's going to look easy for him. And so, to me, the season's going to come down to that. It's not Bachmeier. Bachmeier's going to grow. He's going to have a ceiling. He's going to have mistakes. We're going to watch some awesome plays with his legs. He's going to dump truck some DBs out there. It's going to look so fun. Like, I'm excited to see that. But if you want to win, it's going to come down to, is LJ Martin and the offensive line healthy? If they're healthy, I think you have a shot at a special season, because it's not good. Bachmeier's not going to have to do much. Turn around and hand off the ball, and then hit some wide open dudes on play action. That's going to be, that's going to be his decision making for year one. He eases into the game. But boy, if Martin and or Moa go down early and you're digging deep into that running back room, now you're putting a lot on his shoulders, and I think that might become too much for a freshman.
Yeah, I mean that is a good point. The run game, because when we thought we were going to be, 40, if we had the guys we had last year, then obviously your ceiling's much higher with Martin healthy. But even if Martin goes down, you feel pretty good about the guys you have there. Obviously, that depth has taken a hit, but that's exactly what you want with an inexperienced quarterback. Be able to have that other option. The nice thing is, one of our best players is at tight end, could be a nice little safety valve for a young freshman. And then also, they've talked about repeatedly how well he's picked up the playbook. And so if that means you don't have to dumb down the play calling and everything, and that you can open it up for him, that's going to make things a little bit easier on him as well, because the offense becomes less predictable, and then you have more options. The one thing that, as you were talking about Retzlaff being able to have that experience, one thing that he did really well, I think he had a really good feel for when to tuck and run, and he did a really good job at it.
Yep.
Now, he wasn't Taysom Hill, but Taysom was a little bit twitchy. Sometimes he would run, maybe he didn't need to, but he had the size and speed and athleticism.
I was begging him to run every play. It was so much fun. And there's never been a player like that when they would tuck and run. You knew it was like 50-50 odds that he was going to take it the distance. It was so electrifying. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Taysom, with his skill set, that made sense at the time, and it worked. But that wasn't Retzlaff. He wasn't twitchy. Like, he had a really good sense for that. And that might be something that, Bear has to gain over time. But man, you've kind of already alluded to it, but I'm sure we've all seen that highlight by now from him. I mean, it's one highlight, but from him just like bulldozing people over, getting into the end zone. And granted, it was high school, but he clearly has the size. He clearly has the talent. Whether he can put all that together, he has the smarts. It might take time, but I think he has time throughout this season to get there and really get caught up to speed. So I'm excited. I just hope Cougar Nation has a little bit of grace for him, and we don't turn on him and start calling for Hillstead, at the first signs of trouble. And one thing we were talking about Hillstead is, I mean, this is a guy that I can't remember who it was, like somebody that I feel like a Hans Olsen or something, but was saying last year, like, I wouldn't count on it, bank it. Hillstead will be starting games by middle season or whatever. And they were just really high on him and seen him in high school and things. So I think this is a guy that can, he's good. So I think if Bachmeier is winning it, I think it says more about him than it does necessarily the other guys. And so I think we should feel good about it. Now, there's probably going to be rough patches, but nonetheless, I think there's a lot to be excited about with him. So I don't know. Do you have any other big takeaways from camp or anything else that we've seen going on? There was Trey Alexander has a broken finger, so that's not great. I don't know what that means as far as timeline, like how much you can wrap that thing up and then still.
I mean, a broken pinky for a DB, you're not there to catch the ball. You're there to bat the ball away. Catch the ball is a bonus, right? Pick is a bonus. But you see DBs play with the club all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know that necessarily stops him from playing. Probably limits his effectiveness, gets in your head a little bit when you got an injury like that. But I don't know. I hope that doesn't keep him out. I think it's a huge plus that so far, knock on wood, we haven't had any major injuries. So that's always a big storyline. At least what they've told us, right? They usually disclose season-ending injuries. I'm thrilled that the Big 12 makes them disclose injury reports leading up to a game. I love that. I love that all of college football does that now. It's so dumb when you don't know who's injured and you don't know why someone's not playing. And so I like that the injury reports will come out, but it seems like we give away help.
They're a quarterback and they have a hurt hand and they're a game time decision.
They'd always be a game time decision
every game
for throughout the season. Every game.
I'm kidding. I'm referring
hurt hands are different. Yeah, hands are. If it's what?
It's from a cooler.
Then really, it's basically a non-injury. You don't have to disclose that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Loophole in the rules. They call it the Whittingham loophole.
Actually, speaking of that, I want to hit that up to go back. So obviously Utah was in a similar different because it happened during the season, but early in the season, and Isaac Wilson gets thrown in as a true freshman. And he struggles a bit. He had some moments, showed some talent, but he was just getting torched. Fan base had no faith in him. I think part of that was the coaching staff just completely, they were all about Cam Rising. They kept saying Cam's almost back. Cam's coming back. I don't know. I think that probably played into the fan reaction, but I mean, they turned on him fast. I don't think we'll have that kind of reaction that we saw with Isaac Wilson last year, but
No,
good.
It could, right? I mean, any fan base, and you've seen BYU fans do it, right? If the season's going poorly, they're looking for a scapegoat pretty quick, and it's always the quarterback. And so that was partly why Isaac Wilson took the brunt, because as the quarterback, you take it, and you take the glory, and people get mad at you when the season goes bad. But that was different. The offense wasn't built for Isaac Wilson. He was ill prepared as a freshman. He switched coordinators halfway through the season. The pieces surrounding him were not that great. And this is, I mean, we'll get into Utah assessment later on, and I have a total bias on this as an ultimate BYU fan, but I just can't see how their offense is going to be effective year one. I love Jason Beck. I love him. He's the one coordinator I'd say, yeah, I'll take him over ARod. Because I love his offense. It's fun to watch. I think he's going to be very successful there. But they don't have any pieces. They've got a quarterback who's 5'10", $195, who's going to get knocked around, who's electrifying when healthy, but he's never faced defenses like this. And then you got supposedly a good offensive line. And I say supposedly, they probably got 2 All-Americans on that offensive line. But where were they last year? What, could they not protect anybody? I mean, those quarterbacks got pummeled, and that's partly why they were throwing so many picks. So you don't have an offense, you don't have a running back, you don't have wide receivers. Or wide receivers left the program. You don't have the pieces around them in a year one offense to make it work. And so I'm totally going to eat my words when Jason Beck goes out there and the Utah offense leads the nation in some category. But I can't buy into the hype, and it bothers me that Dampier, who I'm a fan of, is newcomer of the year. Because what? He threw 12 touchdowns and 12 picks and ran all over Mountain West Conference defenses last year.
Yeah, it is pretty wild, but I mean, everybody is gonna win the offseason, which is again why I'm all about this Bear hype train. I'm just trying to tamper expectations a little bit.
It is. And we're not a Utah podcast. I shouldn't be throwing down such analysis on our rivals. Bless their hearts. But yeah, I do think we need to tamp down expectations. It's really tough for true freshmen to succeed. And Bear seems special, right? I mean, it's from everything we've heard about him. It seems like he could be great, but we got to give it some grace, and we got to give it some time. But it is different from the Isaac Wilson situation, where he has that team around him. If they stay healthy, boy, he's got a really good supporting cast.
Absolutely. Okay, so there was another tidbit that came out. This was also from Jackson Payne, but that I learned that Bruce Mitchell was mission companions with Richie Saunders. And I don't know how we're just now hearing about this. How did I not know about this sooner? That is amazing. Can you imagine those two go together? I don't even remember where they served. I feel like it's Spanish speaking.
I thought it was Washington State. Anyway, imagine
no idea, but anyway.
Imagine the tater tots those two ate. I mean, that
in Washington State, yeah, I can.
Seriously,
who ate more, the Tater Tot King or Bruce Mitchell? I'd probably say Bruce Mitchell, but
yeah, that would have been a fun companionship.
Wild stuff. I mean, shoot, very cool. So, interesting tidbit, but nonetheless, I think we're still waiting on Hinckley Rapati. Isn't that right?
That is, and I think that's going to be a big kind of the final story. It was a quiet fall camp besides the quarterback battle, right? That sucks up all the headlines. People are trying to manufacture stories at defensive end, and in reality, we've got some young guys who a lot of them are going to play. There's just not a ton of storylines, which is good in my mind. I like a boring fall camp. You're not getting injuries. You kind of knew the depth chart going in. It's kind of going to end up the way we all thought it was. There might be a surprise here or there, but there's just not a ton of storylines coming out of it, and I don't mind that. As a fan, get in there, install the offense, go through the reps. It means you got good, experienced guys, and who aren't getting injured, and they'll be prepped for the season. So I think that's a successful fall camp, but I don't think there's a lot of storylines beyond that.
Yeah, I agree. There hasn't been a lot. I mean, obviously, whenever you have a quarterback battle, that's going to suck up most of the oxygen in the room. But nonetheless, I think you're right. And that's good news for the team. So, all right, well, let's shift gears here, go into the Big 12. So I think a week or two ago, I'd put out a video ranking the Big 12 uniforms and gotten some some mixed reactions, I think, to to my takes there. And so I'm curious because you and I think have some overlap. Like when it comes to BYU, I think we're mostly in agreement. We talked about BYU when they came out with those uniforms, with the uniform schedule for the season. That really the more traditional. At least that's where I'm at. Like the other looks are great, but I'd like to see more of the traditional white helmet, blue jersey, white pants, or vice versa, and see those looks more. But and with the alternates kind of peppered throughout there. But I think we have some differences on some of these other teams. So I'm kind of curious to see what your reaction on this. So let me pull up. This is kind of a summary of my picks.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. We'll have some differences. And I have to compliment the video. For those of you who haven't seen it, you got to go check it out. It was awesome because I hate the uniform discussions that will show like one jersey or one uniform and not have enough in-depth assessment. You included a lot of different shots. You did past uniforms to current uniforms. You looked at some of the alts, so it was pretty in-depth. I was very impressed, and I thought you came out with a strong argument on a lot of them.
Well, thank you. It took me way too much time, which is why I don't do these more regularly. To find those pictures and get them in there, it takes longer than you think. But yeah, and I think I can back up most of these. Now, a lot of these, like I was changing it up until the moment I decided to record, because some of them I could be talked around on. But I feel like ultimately I feel pretty good. I think more than rankings, tiers would probably be more appropriate. But I want to hear, what are your where do you disagree most? I guess let's go right to it.
All right, let's jump in. We'll start at the end. Cincinnati. I don't like them as last. I thought your take on the Chick-fil-A logo was phenomenal because their red helmets with the C is Chick-fil-A. It is Chick-fil-A, just like we're Yahoo. And now, fortunately, the Yahoo logo is gone, and nobody knows what Yahoo is, so nobody compares. But I remember back in like late 2000s when we first started wearing these uniforms, we get posts online and people are like, I feel like we just lost to Yahoo. What is this? So
I actually got that. My wife and I she was doing her internship. This is right after we got married, right after we graduated, and we were somewhere. We are actually in and somebody, I was just wearing my BYU shirt and the same thing. Yeah. Oh, did you work for Yahoo? Or no, not quite. But
yeah, it's funny. But I hadn't thought of the Chick-fil-A logo with the red helmets for Cincinnati, and you nailed that, because that is absolutely the Chick-fil-A logo. That aside, I think Chick-fil-A. I think Cincinnati does red and black really well. I would bump them way up. I'd probably take Utah's slot and bump Utah down. I can't believe you ranked them that high. Little embarrassed, but that's okay. We can do that. Your take on West Virginia was spot on. Their old uniforms were phenomenal, and they just messed it up. The clean look for them was great. I would have ranked them way higher, and they're busy, they're loud, and I don't like it. Kansas would go lower, maybe the lowest on here, and it's not because of their uniforms. No matter what you put together on Kansas, one, I don't like their big Jayhawk dude for a logo. He's just awkward on a helmet. Two, I don't like red, white, and blue on a uniform. It makes for a fantastic flag, and it's one, but it's not a uniform. And so the schools that do red, white, and blue, it just doesn't mix. And then you throw yellow in there, forget it. Like, I don't know who designed the Kansas color scheme, but it's just not my cup of tea. So I think Kansas might be dead last.
See, Kansas is one that I don't. Maybe this is more of a basketball take. Like, I don't really like most of their basketball uniforms, or something that's just off for me. Like, it doesn't really, but it's so Kansas, and Kansas is so iconic with basketball that's like, I don't really like it, but I also don't want it to change because
I agree. If you're talking about their basketball uniforms, it's probably a totally different discussion because there's so much history and so much dominance there over the years. It's just different. When it comes to football, it's always looked kind of dorky to me.
They've had terrible jerseys in the past. Just uniforms, everything. I think their latest one is very good. It's just not quite there.
Yeah.
Cincy was like the same thing. It is a lot better. This is actually Cincy's my favorite version of Cincy's uniform I've seen yet. But it's
Yeah,
just
you did them dirty by putting them last, man. That
but they're still just lacking a little bit. I could see him coming up a little bit. I think that's fair
yeah.
for But anyway, I think if I would look at the red more as an alternate, so I can't hold that too much against them because I said I was going to stick to really more their main home and away. But it's so hard with college football these days because everyone has like a million looks. So.
I know it is. So which one do you rank, and which ones are true? And I do wish we could kind of go back to some basic looks with the occasional alt. But I get we're here for the uniform revolution, and everybody's got a million looks. But
It's all about and recruiting.
yeah. I'll say this. I think Colorado was ranked about right. I do love what they've done with the gold since Dion's got there. I feel like they've embraced the gold a little bit more, and it's good. But it throws me off why I dislike their uniforms over the years so much, because black and gold are really cool colors, and a buffalo is a really cool mascot, and it feels like you could do so much with that, and yet I just they've always been kind of boring. I didn't like the mountains on the side. I don't really like the stripes. Um, I'll get into stripes later, but like it doesn't work great for Colorado, and so I think they've definitely improved. I would have put them in the bottom two in the pre Deion Sanders years, but I like what they've done with the gold face mask, and they had some cool looks there with Sanders and Hunter.
Yeah. I think they have some looks that really land and aspects of it that land, but just as a whole, no. And they had some bad looks mixed in there.
Yeah.
So
some others I'd switch: Baylor and Arizona for different reasons. Baylor, the stripes don't work. They look like they're straight out of the 80s. I like the simpler uniforms. I actually liked their gold chrome menacing look back in the day when they were super good. I think they should go with a more basic look and throw in that chrome look every once in a while. I think that's pretty cool.
the chrome is coming back at least for a game this season. I
Oh,
saw
good.
video went live. So that will be used. I don't love the chrome as much, but
They can't decide. Baylor's another one of those schools that's like William and Mary here in Williamsburg, Virginia. They can't decide if they're green and yellow or green and gold, and you got to decide. And in my opinion, green and gold is awesome, and green and yellow is okay. If you're the Packers, it looks great, and if you're anybody else, it's just I don't like the color combination. Um, even the Athletics, or there's plenty of green and yellow uniforms out there, and the color combinations never really appealed to me.
see, I like it. I think it works really well, and I prefer that over the chrome. But you're right. You wish they'd pick a lane.
Yeah, because they're kind of skating in the 80s right now with their stripes, and
I like that. Go throwback. I don't know.
I'm okay. I'm okay for a game. Do throwbacks for a game, but like as your permanent look, I don't know. Unless your heyday was. See, it's funny because I don't mind Arizona stripes so much, and they have kind of a similar thing going with Baylor and their red, white, and blue. But I feel like Arizona owns that so much better, where they're subtle with their accent colors. They've always kind of had those stripes. And so there's a little bit more consistency. That A logo is all I've ever known from Arizona. And so it feels like they've owned that identity all the way through. It's like BYU. BYU has almost always had those stripes. So the stripes work for BYU. But if the stripes come and go, I don't like it that much. Like Houston, I liked the cleaner ones they had before versus the stripes. Or excuse me, the cleaner ones they have now versus the stripes. So
no.
if you have stripes and that's part of your identity and you've always done that, it's great, right? Ohio State nails it. They nail it. But that's always been Ohio State's look. And I just don't feel like you can slap them on one year and be like, "Oh yeah, this is who we are. This is it." Just to me, it's just kind of dorky. If it's part of your tradition and it's been part of your look, own it. Otherwise, get something clean and fresh out there.
In terms of Arizona, so that's funny because I actually had them. I think I can't remember where I had them 5, and then I just like had slowly kept moving down, and I couldn't pinpoint anything wrong. Like it's exactly their uniform, like because they've had some like pretty mediocre uniforms over the years. Their uniform now is like exactly. If I were a Arizona fan, it's exactly what I would want from my team. but it just didn't move me. There's just something there, and it might be the
Yeah.
navy blue, like that color just isn't the most striking or the most, I don't know, which is another reason
Yeah.
why, like, for BYU, like, get away from the navy, go stay with the royal where it's like your own unique
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
And
I could see that. I could see that with Arizona for sure.
so it was more
Um,
of just like a kind of neutral, but like, yeah, I think they're really well designed looks.
yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, Cincy to me is, yeah, probably similar. Their new look with the UCF and the TCU, the ultra clean, the look that actually Baylor and West Virginia had previously, the
Yes.
super ultra clean, just solid color. Well, they'd mix and match, but um
Yeah,
and
I like the clean. I think it's a sharp look depending on who you are, right? I mean, it can go too plain, it can go too boring. You got to have something there. But the point you made about TCU's little uh neck logo they had going on for years, I thought that was just kind of random and unappealing. And I think they have a much better look now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I'm not a huge purple fan, and I know that's a bad take. That's why I downgrade Kansas State. They've got a good thing going. A lot of tradition there. Their stripes are great. They've always had them. They've got a consistent look. The white helmet alternates are kind of nice. I don't have a lot of complaints about Kansas State's look. I don't love purple on a uniform, but it's that's just my personal taste. As far as the uniform goes, it's nice.
See, I love purple. I don't know why wasn't for a long time that I realized it, that I was like, oh man, I keep liking all these uniforms. They're all purple. So I guess that's what I like, and realized that I'd accumulated a couple purple ties as well. So um anyway, let's talk about this section, the 3, 4, 5, because all three of those honestly surprised me. Because if I'm going into this blind, not having like just looked at uniforms, you would have asked me those three, they probably would have all been on the lower end of this. But all three of them have made recent updates, either last year or this year, to their uniforms that I think really elevated all three of them. And I think again, all three of them surprised me.
So Iowa State has elevated their game for sure. They've had some nasty ones over the years. I don't like their throwbacks because of that. Um, I wouldn't put them top three. I wouldn't put them top seven because of their color scheme. I don't like the maroon and yellow. Um, it's just not. It's not a great color combination. It's nowhere near like the Wyoming brown and yellow, the worst color combination in the history of sports. But um, to me, just your color combination is never going to get you top seven, except for their road whites with the white helmets. That's a sharp look. Um,
See,
Oklahoma.
I
Oh,
disagree. That color is, I mean, because like my only issue is that it looks like USC, and so I think it's a great color scheme. It's just they don't own it. USC owns it. It's too similar, and
that's fair. That's fair because I
so
don't. But USC isn't quite the same color, and they do own it a little bit more. Um, I guess that's a good point. Um, it's just it's tough. It's tough to put those together in a striking way. USC does it, and maybe it's just that tradition. They've been dominant so long, and you recognize the uniforms right away.
I will
And
say
I would.
something that'll ruin USC uniforms for you if you happen to like them. Is somebody on one of my videos, I did a Pac-12 rankings years back, and they called them ketchup and mustard. And ever since I saw that, like, I can't unsee it. It's all I see is like a hot dog, ketchup and mustard there.
There you
So
go.
uh,
Yeah. Now Iowa State is ruined the same way. So I knew there was a reason I didn't love the maroon and
but
yellow.
in Iowa, it would be deep fried hot dog and ketchup.
That's right. That's right.
So
Try to respect
I
where
guess
we're
it's
at.
a dog. So anyway, uh,
Um, I'll tell you, I'm surprised how much I love and have always loved Oklahoma State's uniforms. I usually don't love like orange and black is like Halloween, so you get a great. In October, your uniforms look awesome, and besides that, you're like, I don't know if I
it's
want
kind
orange
of
and
a
black.
rough color scheme to be able to pull off well.
It is, and yet somehow they do it when they put their Pistol Pete dude on the helmet,
Oh, I
and
love
man, they've got their and you can do a blackout uniform all the time. And so when they do blackout with the orange accents and sometimes the orange jerseys, like they just get the right shade and it pops and it's saturated enough, it works. And so I put Oklahoma State just a little bit higher on this. Um, I like I said, I dropped Kansas State, Iowa State, Utah, Baylor, all of those. TCU I'd put up a little bit higher. UCF, I think you mentioned there how clean their look is right now. It's good. They've had some bad ones in the past, in my
Oh yeah.
opinion. But right now it's a pretty good look.
Well, and that goes to
Um,
your point. Like, if you don't have the tradition, like I really like that. If you do have the tradition, lean into the tradition. I'm
yep.
more on the traditional look. Sounds like you're more on kind of and I do like clean uniforms. I think it can be traditional and clean, but
Mhm.
you're more into this kind of traditional, which is great. But I think it's trendy as well, and that at a certain point, it's gonna age out and it's going to be something else. Whereas like these
It
traditional
is.
looks, like they're iconic. They won't change. We already talked about Ohio State. As much as I hate them, USC, I don't like them. Texas, like
Yeah,
Alabama,
Michigan,
all these. I
Oklahoma.
like Michigan, but like they're all iconic and they're all fantastic uniforms, and not just because they're old and we're used to seeing them. They're all just like legitimately really good uniforms. And so I'm like, why are
Well,
we inventing the wheel? But
right, and they're clean, most of them, right? They're not gaudy.
Mhm.
Um, they put emphasis on the logo, and they're instantly identifiable. And I think that's where teams kind of run afoul a little bit is when you shake up the look so much. I think it was BYU and ASU. Their game was replaying on ESPNU the other day, and I could not figure out forever who BYU was playing. I thought it was like Arkansas State. I'm like, we didn't play Arkansas. Who is this? And it took me a long time to figure out who they were playing because Arizona has switched up their look so much. Again, maroon and yellow. Um, they just don't have that look. I wish they'd stick with the pitchfork. They had some good traditional looks there, even with their challenging color scheme. They've had some good looks, and I don't think they have it now. They have some fun iterations. I don't mind some of their stuff. As far as on some of the trendier side, they've had some cool looks, similar to Oregon, and I don't mind some of their stuff. But I wouldn't rank their consistent uniform very highly. I think their alts come across as pretty cool.
No, but their maroon jersey, you get the now throwback, which is weird because it's the one I grew up with forever. But the pitch, what's it, Sparky on the
Yeah.
helmet, and like the yellow. But they had like these nice clean stripe. Instead, now they have like the pitchfork. Like really any sort of pictures for stripes or like on your uniform. To me, besides like the logo maybe on the shoulders, like it starts looking real like FCS to me. And so
Yeah.
that almost alone, and the yellow away uniforms for Arizona State were really ugly, which is another point I want to get to is that a lot of these I love. Actually, I think they all have great color schemes, but the accent colors need to stay accent colors. Like
Yes.
Cincinnati, the
Yes.
red, just let it be a little bit of accent.
I totally agree.
Most of these that we're looking at, and ASU, it's the yellow. That's why like Oregon or Oklahoma State is so crazy because normally orange is like one, like just let it be a little accent, and they somehow adapted in there, taking this like classic elements but in like a very new clean way, and they merge it
Yeah.
really well together, and I think it's a fantastic look. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't
Well,
know, like all these teams, they're like really close.
yeah, and I think there's some who have nailed it. We have not touched on the dear rivals Utah, which you ranked in your top five. Top five is where you ranked them. Um, and I know I've really hounded people on color scheme today. This is solely an emotional response to that shade of red. Um, the blood clot red is just it's the wrong shade. If you go like the Alabama crimson, right? That can be a sharp look. Even Houston has a little bit darker red. USC, uh, it's Utah is eye-watering red, and I know their fans love it, and I would too if I were a fan because ours is eye-wateringly royal. Like it's just bright and saturated, and that's that color of red for Utah. And there's just not a whole lot you can do with it. Now you mentioned their logo shift to the interlocking U, which is a good change. It's just boring. It's so boring. Now if they had owned that logo throughout their history, it'd be different, right? Because then they would have that logo on any past accomplishments, but they didn't. They had the U with the feather, and they had that for years and years and years and years. And now they're trying to switch over to this, which is kind of how Utah does, right? New conference, and all of a sudden we got this rich history, and no, you had a pretty good run the past 15 years, and there's just not a lot of depth there, and so they're trying to own a traditional logo in the last few years. and that's a contradiction. And so it is better, but it's boring as all get out. It's too the font is too simple. It's not. I mean, the BYU Y is unique. I don't know how they came up with this stretch over Y. I mean, it would be bizarre if I saw that and on writing, I'd be like, "What is that?" But it symbolizes something. It symbolizes 60 years of incredible football, and Utah just doesn't have that. And so when I look at their logo, again, speaking as a rival and someone who's not complimenting our dear rivals up north, it's kind of boring and their colors eye watering. So don't rank them in your top 5, Trevor.
I do agree with the shade of red. Just it's a lot. Like when I talk about colors that should remain accents, like that is a shade of red. If you're using it, that should be the accent. Although I don't like their black uniforms either, and that's something that Texas Tech problem they run into is their black uniforms are usually better than their red, but they're the Red Raiders, so they can't really get away from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for Utah, I like the shift. I like the more traditional look. I think it's still a little too cute, but they're old uniforms. Their previous version, what they were even rolling out with last year, those would have been dead last over basically anything in this conference over the last several years. I mean, I never liked those. They were ugly. They're now much cleaner and just they just really adopted a more traditional look. I do think the font of the numbers on there is weird and kind of cutesy for some weird reason that doesn't go with the rest of the uniform. But overall, I mean, they had to give them credit. Like I kept thinking, hey, if Utah would change to something like this, it would look a lot better. And then they started introducing it, and then they finally fully adopted it. And so I have to give them props for doing what I thought they should do to have a better uniform for the last many, many years, because they had some really, really ugly looks. And I don't think it was just because I don't like Utah. I think it's just they were just ugly. And it just made it all that much easier to not like them. But so I felt like I legitimately like the design, and they're a little bit harder to hate when it looks as good as it does. So I have to give them props for that.
You did the right thing. There needs to be less animosity between BYU and our Utah friends. And so friends, colleagues, acquaintances, neighbors, right? Respected citizens.
Respected.
We can extend a hand of friendship. And so you did the right thing, offering respect where respect is due. I would hate to see a Utah podcast ranking these uniforms and what they say about the BYU uniforms. So I'm sure there would be dislike thrown our way as well, just from the emotional response.
The comments I've gotten on this video, and then we'll wrap up, is just the everyone's like, "Oh, you're a homer. Oh, this was a waste of time. Of course you put them for." I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like, you're surprised, like, and I think it's deserving. Like, I think BYU's uniforms are legitimately that good. And when we talk about iconic looks that have stayed over the years, like, yeah, BYU went away from it for a minute, and then then they did. And I give Bronco a lot of credit. I think he did a lot of good going back to this template, just the navy blue, which is kind of a bridge between that other era and what uniforms we should be wearing. But it is a great look, great color. Like, they're just in my mind perfect. And there's other uniforms out there that I think are perfect for those schools, and this is perfect for BYU. And I think they're legitimately that good. And I will say, I did a baseball uniform rankings. BYU wasn't number one there. I didn't think they were my favorite. If we were to do basketball, I'd have them high, but they're probably not my favorite in the conference. We'll see if like I said, these take a long time, so we'll see if I get around to it. So I am biased, but I also try to be somewhat fair. I mean, I do have Utah in the top 5.
Yeah, you do, which you deserve credit for. There is one other uniform ranking that BYU would definitely be number 1 on, and that would be the worst uniforms in the history of college football single season. I own to this day a bib BYU jersey, and it's sometime I should wear it here on the podcast.
Why don't you? Are you going to wear it to the ECU game?
Maybe I'll wear it to the ECU game and bring that thing out in public. It still has the French fry sauce stain from 7th grade that I put on there. And so I was so behind the bib uniforms when they came out. I defended those to the teeth to everybody in the hallway of 7th grade. Um, and and now I can look back with great regret on those years because those things were hideous, and I can't believe BYU administration ever consented to let us go on the field with those things. Thank goodness they were banned after 1 year. So, in all fairness, let's just all be grateful that the 2000 uniforms are gone, and I think it was the 2004 uniforms with the million stripes on the shoulders and no names on the back. We've had our fair share of rough years, and now we've got something great. We've come through the uniform desert, and now we're in a good spot.
Which is yeah, absolutely. I feel good about it. And so anyway, yeah, I love this debate. Like I said, I could be talked in and out of a lot of these as time goes on, and there's a lot of good points either way. But I feel pretty solid. I wouldn't make too many changes to this still, even after getting roasted in my comments or by you or anybody else. I think there's
Like I said, you structured that video. It was in depth, and I was trying to disagree more with you on the video, and I was like, man, that is a really good point. So I felt like you did your homework. Like I said, you did a lot of comparisons year over year. You looked at the alts. It was comprehensive, and it was tough to argue in the end.
All right. Well, so if you haven't watched it yet, go check that out. Also, make sure you like and subscribe so you can catch all these live videos. We're going to do our best to keep this going throughout the season as we break down the previous weekend and look ahead a little bit to games. As we get going with the season, we'll also be bringing on guests to do kind of a from the opposing team each week. And we'll also be doing live shows, live reactions very, very late. Yeah, though after those 10:30 p.m. Eastern kickoffs. I don't know about Adam. He's a little more disciplined than I am. He likes to go to bed, but I'll be here reacting live. And so make sure you like and subscribe and join us for each of those. And thank you for watching. And as always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.